Hi, everybody. Well, I'm back again, and we're going to take a look at Chapter 11. As you can see, I'm at home in my home office, and I do appreciate you taking the time to look at these videos, although they give you the great advantage, if you will, of fast forwarding, repeating things, etc., which you can't do in the regular classroom. I understand that, and I'm sorry, but hey. But this is Zoom, and I'll be sending another one of these notices out about this meeting, and I'll post it also in the website for BISS 4403. Today we're going to take a look at Chapter 11, and Chapter 11 deals with column functions and in terms of summarizing data. We've moved from building tables, running queries, and so forth, altering tables, creating primary keys, all that business, learning about the graphic user interface, the data dictionary. Now we're manipulating data, and we've done the row functions, okay, which are records, basically, we're dealing with. And now we're starting to work with column functions, and those are sorts of the various attributes or dimensions that we're working with in a data warehouse. Now, I want to, as you can see, I'm looking over at something, and I'm looking over here at page 401 in your textbook. You ought to have it out with you always. And this shows you the beginning table and the bottom page 401 and the result table. And we work through summarizing a column. And what these are called, column functions, also known as aggregate functions. We're getting totals of some kind. And then, as he mentions there, column functions are also over on page 403. Column functions are also called aggregate functions or group functions. And then if you take a look at page 402 and 403 and 403, pardon me, you're going to see all of an overview of the column functions for Oracle and Access and what each one of them do. And there's nothing there really that's, seems too complicated. Yes, it's typical kinds of things, mathematical functions primarily, and you can see at the very bottom of page 403, the text columns, what those column functions do with text versus what they do with data, and then they give you the data column examples. Well, they start off with using the minimum and maximum values, and I'm going to share my screen here, and of course you'll want to have the share my desktop, excuse me, and you'll want to have the lunches, pardon me, you'll want to have SQL Fun open. You'll also want to have Chapter 11 from the Patrick materials. I'll get that thing. There's Chapter 11, and let me manipulate this around a little bit. And here in this very first query, we're going to run the minimum and the maximum for each of these dimensions or columns that are in the employees table. You can see that pretty clearly. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down. Close it, but of course we'll create the query. And we'll run the query and get our result set. You can see we've got expressions for these. Now, I'm going to go back in for a moment into the query view, and you'll see we didn't use any expressions. We didn't use any column aliases. So that's why we get that expression 1, expression 2, etc. Okay? And all we'd have to do is just we'd have to do minimum credit and there between the, right in front of the comma on the first line, select minimum credit as min credit, whatever you would want to name it, and we've got that. Now we're going to save that as 11.3, and there we've done query 11.3. Again, as you can see, we look at the result sets. You can see the expressions. And to change that, we go ahead and we would use a column alias to work with those. Now, I'm looking here at the bottom page 405. I'm going to see if they ask us to name anything, and they didn't. And they show us there at 406, page 406, the result table. Top of 406, as usual, the authors will show us the beginning table, which is the employees table, and then the result table. And then it has a whole slew of notes. And of course, we would want to use column aliases in lieu of these expressions. Well, over on page 407, there's a little bit of a twist on that, and that's 11.4, and I'll pop this up real quickly. And here, all they do in 11.4 is they use a where condition, so we'll just go ahead and copy that in. That, do that, undo that. And what we're going to do here, made an accident there. We'll close that off. And we'll create this query. And what it's doing is we're using the where clause to specify a specific set of employees. In other words, you can see where employee ID between 202 and 206. So we're basically doing a filter. And we'll run this. And that, again, we have these column aliases. And we'll want to say this is 11.4. I think that's the number. Yeah. And again, for all intents and purposes, we are, we just would clean this up a little bit and toss it. But you could see with the column aliases, so it looks, we know what we're talking about. Now, again, we'll close this off. You can see how we're using these aggregate functions on columns. We're using the minimum, the maximum. Of course, as we saw back there in the table, there are things like the standard deviation and so forth. And counts, that's another thing. Just simply doing some counts. On 11.4, they show you the beginning and the, on page 408, they show you the beginning table on the result set for 11.4. Now, 11.5 is a little bit different, and this is using a couple of steps to do some work. And I want to direct your attention over to page 410 in the textbook. That's going to be 11.5 Oracle and Access SQL Method 2. So let's open this up for a minute, because this is going to use a subquery to save us from doing some work. Okay, here's the method 2, and you say, what's a subquery? Let me show you real quickly if that's kind of blown by you. If you look, you're going to see we're going to select the typical stuff, select employee blah, blah, from employees table. Ain't good enough. Select statement where, and that's not a big deal. Then watch this equal, and then the parenthesis, we select the minimum credit limit from employees. And so that's the subquery, is that where the where clause precedes that subquery, and the subquery is within those parentheses. It says select the minimum credit limit from the employees. So we're going to find that. So we're doing a query, and then we're embedding a query within a query. And in this case, we're using the min function, which is a column or aggregate function to get that result set. So this is 11.5 method 2. So let's go ahead and copy that, and then we'll pop it into Access. So we'll click Create, the usual drill. And we'll run the query. And there we are. Now, if you want to see the result set that you're supposed to get, you're looking at it, as well as the result table at the bottom of page 410. And in this case, we utilized column aliases. Pardon me, we didn't need to. This table, employees table, the columns are already named. Good enough. So we're going to save this as 11.5. And I know, I'm tempted to say meth 2, but I'm going to put method 2. Okay, 11.5 method 2. So we're moving through here pretty, you can see not that big of a deal. It's just, you know, running some queries. Now, they've got some count functions, and again, aggregate functions also don't include numerical computation, as you recall, but also includes aggregation, counting things. And so we're going to see a simple count function. And again, we're going to run the 11.6 that's over there on page 412. This will be 11.6, and you'll see we're going to select the account. Notice what we're going to do here. We're going to select, and then we use the count function, and the asterisk sign means everything. And then we're going to count last name, the hire date, the manager ID from the employees table. So let's go ahead and copy that. And then we'll throw it into Access. I know some of you are already thinking, why can't we do this instead of being a class? And well, you know. Now, at the bottom of page 412, and this is going to be 11.6. You'll notice that they have names for their columns, whereas we do not, okay? And naming that column is a little tricky. I've tried it in the past, and you know, it's just changing these expressions out, it gets a little bit problematic. You can do it to make it look prettier. And you might have to use, the problem that you run into, and I've messed with this query, is that it uses the word count, and trying to use the alias like that, it kind of throws it. You have to put in parentheses, and it kind of throws it. So you'd want to, you know, you'd want to pretty it up by using the column alias, but again, you're gonna have trouble getting exact results. And I have to take a look at what the author, how they got that. It's obvious that what they run here, what they had us run here, was not going to do that. Okay, now so far we're kind of breezing along with this thing, and we'll close that off. And over on page 414, you're going to see another example of 11.7, okay? And so let's look at this one. And here they use column aliases. You say, well, what do you mean? Well, here you are. This is also 11.7. What we did, yeah, we were supposed to name this thing right here SEC 1107. So I'm not going to put us through that. We've already run, but basically we were this query that we just ran here, we were supposed to name it section 1107, and we didn't. We just and then here this query 11.7. Okay, here's where we're using we're using the column alias, and so we're going to do this. I'm gonna doctor this up a little bit, and we're going to use this table 11 11-7, and let's just see what we get. It may work, it may not. My hunch is it might. Let's see. So I'm going to copy that. We may get an error here. We may get something that runs for us. Hopefully, if I had remembered the name of that, I believe we just named it 11-7. It'll run. Yep, couldn't find the input query. Let me pop down here. I know what the problem is. I called it 11-6, so I used the proper name. So let's try 11-6. This is the nice thing about being able to work at the code, and let's see what happens. And it may not like that query name. Yeah. So let's do this. Let's just come in here on 11-6. Let's rename it 116. It's Nate. All you have to do is just go in there and rename it. That 11-6, let's call it 116. I'm just adapting this name of this query that we ran. Let's run it out, and we're getting a parameter error. But it gives us the column count, the column rows, the maximum and minimum average, which is a null. And that's a little bit of a mystery why we ran into the parameter. Let's call that 11-7. But the whole point was, we've done the column functions, the aggregate functions, and we utilized the column alias. Okay, you have to be careful with some of these keywords because it can get you in trouble. Chapter 8, 11.8 shows at the bottom of page 416 how to it starts counting the number of distinct values in a column, and they show you an Access SQL workaround, which is 2 steps. And we're going to look at this 11.8 step 1, and we'll close this off. This is workaround step 1. Now, here's the issue, is that in Oracle, you can do a select count statement. Then within the select count, you can embed distinct. Here as they do it, I'm at the bottom, page 415. In Oracle, you can embed the distinct keyword or operator and then go from there. We can't do that. In Access, we have to, as they show on page 416, we have to do select distinct into, and we have into the step 1, and we're going to create that. So we're creating SEC 1108 underscore step 1 from the employees table. So we're going to select that. So we're doing the first step of the workaround. This is the bottom page 416. So copy that. And we'll run it. I'm about to paste 4 rows into a table, and we have done it. And we'll want to call this I called it 11-8 very creatively. Step 1. See how creative that was? And then we'll close this off. Now we're ready to do the second workaround, and that's at the bottom of page 416. And it's in the code also for chapter 11 from the Patrick text. Here it is. And we're going to select count, manager ID. Now watch out. See this little thing right here? You're going to run into some of these little glitches. See the little letter there? I'm not sure what that market watermark is about. It's a problem, and you just want to get rid of it. You're going to see a few of those things that will mess you up. So watch out for those. I don't know what was going on. Maybe his graduate assistant was mad at him, or who knows. We click create and embedded those to confound us all. Now we're ready to run it. And here's the expression. And we can, of course, get rid of the expression, but this will be in fact, let's go back into the query, right into the SQL design, select count and select count manager ID as ID counts. There it is. See, we used the got rid of the, we used the column alias there, and that'll be 11-8 workaround step 2. Okay. And we'll close it off. And you'll want to note there at page 417 at the very top, they give you some explanations about the differences of Oracle and Access on these and counting the distinct rows. This is, of all the parts of the chapter, the easiest, I think, are the aggregation. Minimum, maximum, standard deviation, those are easy. It's the distinct count that becomes problematic because you're trying to do aggregation and grouping, so it's a little bit tricky. And you'll see, for example, they talk about concatenation with a separator versus without a separator. And of course, the separator and the concatenation is, you know, the asterisk. And there at the bottom, they show you the number of distinct combinations manager ID. Now, to get all of the, to get that same output, okay, and they show you the result table is, and this is where you try and find the number of distinct combinations of manager ID. You might need, you know, you might want to say, okay, well, how many combinations possible do we have on our advertising campaign, or how many combinations of risk and reward have we got in our portfolio, something like that. And you know, again, it's the authors trying to show us, you know, aggregation. And this might be trying to get the number of how many people, how many cases do we have, how many customers do we have that meet 2 or 3 criteria. And that's when then we're doing the distinct group. Over on page 419, they show us a workaround and for access. I'm going to do step 1. And we're going to create a thing called Section 1109 Manager Credit. Click Create. And we'll do the usual BISS. So let's pop that in. Let's run it and see what we got. And we're about to paste 7 new rows into a table, which is fine. and we're going to save this query as 11.9 step 1. Okay, so we're doing a workaround here. Let's look at the results set, and it'll show you the manager ID and their credit limit. Okay, so we've got each of those. Now, he wants us to do a workaround. Okay, and you can see this is the temporary table we created, and this, you'll see this here at the bottom. We've replicated basically what's at the bottom of page 419. Now, here's the second part of the workaround. And this is over in the text file. We'll go to it. And now we're going to select the count for manager credit. So we have to do these workarounds. And we'll run it here. Now away we go. And we get this expression 1 that shows 7. And again, we could use an alias to get rid of that. And let's just go ahead and do that. Go into the SQL view, and it says select count. And we'll say select count as column underscore count. And that ought to work. And there it is. We use the alias to pretty it up. Now we'll save this as 11-9 step 2. Okay. All righty. Now, over on page 421, I'm not going to, if you'll take a look there, it's 11:10. I'm just going to show you the code, and if you and with your book, pardon me, you ought to be able to see what we've got here. And here's 11:10. We're going to select the sum and from the credit limit, and then the average for the employee. So we're just basically going to get the credit limit, the total, and then the average. Okay. And they give us some notes about it, you know. Now, remember the result table that's shown there from running 11:10 is, and this is in page 621. And let's just run it. Why not? Remember, we're pulling the data and again, we'd have to do some column aliases. So let's do some. We have to do a column alias to get those expressions out. We'll just leave them. But remember here, we're pulling the results we're getting here, expression 1 and expression 1001. We're pulling them from one column, okay? That's why we call it an aggregate function. So this will be 11:10. -10. Okay. Page 422 through page 423 gives us the issue of the problem with nulls and how to deal with them. And they talk about that fact, and you know, you've heard me mention many times nulls are not the same as zero. A null is just nothing in there. Zero means zero. It's a number, okay? And when we get a null value, we don't know what to do with it. We don't know if somebody left it out on purpose, if it was a mistake. We just don't know. And so it poses a problem for us, especially when we want to do aggregate functions. And so they give us a workaround, they show us there, that we can have some problems. That we can do some workarounds. And there at the bottom of page 422, they give us an example of the problem with addition. And they show us a result set with null data in it. And they give us some notes there. And the line that adds the columns first and adds the rows and how it shows they're different. And then they give you an explanation of that. Now, here on page 425, they show you the correct way to do this using the NZ function, okay? And so they give you, you're using the NZ, which is no nulls function. Remember, we've done that already. And so there's no real big reason to go through and run 2 or 3 queries to get that result. You could see that over on page 425. And that's using the non-null function. And that's 1111 method 1, okay? And then you give you an explanation for that. Then they go into Oracle SQL, some last thoughts in terms of dealing with null values. And over on page 428, they mention the fact that we don't always turn nulls into zeros. And sometimes we have to deal with nulls in a little bit different way than we want to. And 1112 is an example of that. And so let's look at 1112 and come down here. I think we already have this this table, section 1112 shipping. I believe we already have that table. If not, we're going to get an error. But notice what we got going on here. And look, I can just highlight it. The NZ, of course, means no nulls. And so we're going to select the sum of the price times the quantity plus tax, which is 0.7 times price times quantity, plus shipping, which is 12% times price times quantity. And we're going to name the sum of that as total invoices. That's a column, and we're going to pull that data. So you'll see that hopefully if we didn't have to create that SEC 1112 shipping table or view or whatever it was already. Okay, create query design. And there you get the total invoice of $3,359. And in the textbook, what we've done is we've ignored the nulls. We've said we're not taking, if there's a null value in there, forget it, bypass it. We don't accept any nulls. And so they show us the beginning table and then the ending table. And the result set, that's over on page 429. That's 1112. 1113 has us count the number of nulls in a column. And that's pretty simple. That's 1113. I don't think that's over on page 430. And that's just basically, if you take a look, I'll just show you here real quickly. Big deal. Select count is number of nulls from where the manager ID is null. Okay. And over on page 431, they talk about counting distinct dates. And they show you an Oracle solution for that. That uses the truncate. As usual with Access, it's a little more complicated. This is why Oracle has become commercially more and more prevalent. Number one, it's a product. Access is really not designed to handle big jobs. It's really just not. You can, but it's just not. It's really meant to be kind of an all-purpose database. Primarily, a lot of small business people could use it. You know, again, most of the, if you're at the point in your company where you really need a database, you need to store data and be able to pull up information, okay, then start with Access. If not, then, you know, learn Oracle or get somebody who can do your database work for you. If you're a pretty complex organization, so like where my wife works, they have a vendor who supplies them an application. And that's what most of you will be running into, okay? But having an understanding this is good because you know what's behind here. And basically on page 432, they have you know, 2 steps you've got to go through. And the problem with this is it uses the format function. You can see select distinct format, which is a nightmare. That format just doesn't work. And my friends, that pretty much walks us through chapter 11. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing this. And I want to just say again, thank you for your time and patience. Thank you for being guinea pigs. And you know, as I'm working through this, I'll try to save these queries and then post it as something. But again, don't worry about the points. I just wanted you to see the videos. I'm learning a little bit how they work, etc. I'll show you another thing that I didn't do, which I'll go back to the desktop. And of course, I didn't do my annotation thing where I do the spotlight on the mouse. See, I didn't do that. I'm so sad. So I got to learn stuff. Got to learn how to work this. Got to have that little spotlight thing going on. Got it? Well, my friends, as I said before, thank you so much. Hope you've had a great, are having a great spring break. And I will see you a week from Thursday. I'll do 1 or 2 more broadcasts, and that'll cover chapters. 1 or 2 will cover chapter 12. And so we'll have done 10, 11, and 12. And again, I thank you. As I broadcast here from my beautiful home office here in Oklahoma City. And what can I say? As you can see, I'm wearing my hoodie again in honor of Mark Zuckerberg. What more can I do? And you know, if I've got to look at my face, so do you. Okay? Have a good one. God bless you. I'm looking forward to seeing you back next Thursday night. And look forward for 1 or 2 more of these where we'll cover chapter 12. And in addition, since you're guinea pigs, I'm going to set up a couple of live meetings. We'll probably do them during class time. So we'll have a little bit more, and I'll post a solution for you so you get the points. I do appreciate you being guinea pigs in this issue with this. And, you know, we may have a class session where we go ahead and do it remote and see what happens. Or I may just sit in my office and broadcast to you while you're in the lab. You wouldn't like that, I know. Anyway, my friends, take care. Have a good one. See you later.